The wreck Dominion had ruled the Orion Arm for 12,000 cycles. Their sleek vessels cut through space with unmatched precision. Their diplomats negotiated with ruthless efficiency, and their scientists unlocked secrets that lesser species could barely comprehend. Yet Admiral Dor found himself puzzled by the small blue-green planet on his view screen. Primitives, he muttered, mandibles clicking in mild amusement. Pre-spaceflight technology. Nuclear-capable but still burning fossil fuels. His second-in-command, Officer Malk, tilted her head curiously. Yet you requested a full battle group for this survey? Look closer, Dor instructed, manipulating the controls to zoom in on several locations around the planet. These creatures, humans, they call themselves. They keep Galax in their dwellings. Malk's compound eyes widened. Impossible. Galax are apex predators. The most dangerous hunters in 7 systems. The screen showed images of what the humans called cats and dogs, domesticated versions of Galax subspecies that had evolved on this isolated world, cut off from their more fearsome cousins that terrorized developed worlds across the galaxy. They've domesticated them, Dor said with disbelief evident in his harmonics. Not just tamed, genetically modified them over millennia. These humans live with predators that would eviscerate a wreck warrior in seconds. Malk studied the footage of humans petting these creatures, sleeping beside them, even putting clothes on them. How is this possible? That's what the High Council wants to know, Dor replied. These humans show no signs of advanced technology, yet they've accomplished something our best geneticists failed to do for centuries. In a modest home in Montana, Tom Miller had no idea his golden retriever represented an evolutionary impossibility. He simply tossed a ball across his backyard, watching as Scout bounded after it with delighted energy. Good boy, Tom called as Scout returned, tail wagging furiously, golden fur catching the late afternoon sunlight. From orbit, Officer Malk observed this simple interaction with growing unease. If they can domesticate Galax, what else might they be capable of? Admiral Dor's decision came swiftly. We need samples, both human and Galax. Prepare an extraction team. That night, as Tom slept peacefully with Scout curled at the foot of his bed, the air in his bedroom shimmered briefly. Scout's ears perked up, a low growl building in his throat. Before either could fully wake, they were enveloped in a containment field and transported to the waiting research vessel. Across Earth, 50 similar abductions occurred simultaneously. In the sterile laboratory of the Vrek flagship, Tom awoke disoriented. Scout was gone. Strange insectoid creatures moved around him, speaking in clicks and whistles. The universal translator implanted in his brainstem, without his knowledge, activated. Subject conscious, one of the aliens announced. Beginning. Evaluation. Where am I? Tom demanded, struggling against his restraints. Where's my dog? Admiral Dor approached, studying Tom with scientific detachment. Your companion is safe. We are merely curious how your species has accomplished what the rest of the galaxy could not. What are you talking about? Tom asked. You live with monsters, Dor explained, and somehow you've made them love you. In another section of the ship, Scout and the other Earth pets were undergoing extensive genetic analysis. The wreck scientists couldn't believe what they were seeing. These are definitely Galax, the chief geneticist confirmed. But their aggression genes have been suppressed, their social bonding pathways enhanced. Can we replicate this? Dor asked. Perhaps, the geneticist replied. But more concerning is what it reveals about the humans. Explain. Any species that can turn the galaxy's most feared predator into a loving companion is not to be underestimated. These humans may be more dangerous than we realized. 6 months into his captivity, Tom had learned much about the Vrek and their place in the galactic hierarchy. He had also learned that Earth was considered a primitive backwater, interesting only because of humanity's bizarre relationship with what the aliens called Galax. Your testing is complete for today, announced Dr. Krell, the Vrek scientist who had become Tom's primary handler. The insectoid alien's mandibles clicked in what Tom had come to recognize as mild frustration. Your physiology continues to confound our expectations. When can I see Scout? Tom asked for the 100th time. Krell's compound eyes glittered. Soon. The Admiral has authorized an experiment. Tom was escorted to a large, arena-like chamber. In the center stood Admiral Dorr and Officer Malk, and between them, on a leash made of some shimmering material, was Scout. "Scout," Tom called. Out, his heart leaping. The golden retriever's ears perked up and he strained toward Tom, tail wagging frantically, but the leash held him back. "Remarkable," Dorr clicked. "The bond persists despite months of separation." "He's my dog," Tom said. "Of course he remembers me." Malk tilted her head. "On 17 worlds, Galax hunt sentient species for sport. They are apex predators with intelligence comparable to your dolphins. Yet you call this one dog, and treat it as a subordinate companion." "He's family," Tom corrected. The aliens conferred briefly, then Dorr gestured to an aide who approached with a container. Inside was something that looked like a cross between a scorpion and a tarantula, roughly the size of a house cat. "This is a juvenile vrek," Dorr explained. "Normally it would require 2 more cycles to become fully sentient. We want you to domesticate it." Tom stared in disbelief. "You want me to make it a pet? That's not how domestication works. It takes thousands of years of selective breeding." "Yet you personally have tamed this Galax," Malk insisted, pointing to Scout. "We've observed 50 humans with 50 Galax subspecies. All show the same patterns of control and affection." "It's not control," Tom argued. "It's a relationship." But the vrek were insistent. Tom was given the juvenile alien, along with Scout, in a habitat designed to resemble an Earth apartment. For weeks, Tom attempted to explain to his captors that domestication was a long-term evolutionary process, not something that could be accomplished with a single alien in a matter of months. What the vrek didn't understand, or refused to accept, was the fundamental difference between taming and domestication. Scout's ancestors had co-evolved with humans over thousands of generations, each species influencing the other's development. The young vrek, meanwhile, came from a species whose evolutionary path had never intersected with humanity's until now. Nevertheless, Tom tried. He named the creature Spike and set about establishing basic communication patterns. To his surprise, Spike proved remarkably adaptable. Within weeks, the juvenile vrek began responding to simple commands, learning to associate specific behaviors with rewards. Scout, initially wary of the alien arachnid, eventually adopted a cautiously tolerant attitude. One evening, as Tom sat reading a book provided by his captors about galactic history, both Scout and Spike dozed peacefully nearby. Surveillance cameras captured the scene, and in the observation room Admiral Dorr and his team watched with growing unease. "It's happening again," Malk whispered. "He's forming a bond with the juvenile." "Impossible," Dr. Krell insisted. "Our species is fundamentally different from Galax. We have complex social structures, advanced cognition." "And yet," Dorr interrupted, "the human has the juvenile responding to vocalizations within 7 weeks. It actively seeks the human's approval." "There's something about them we're missing," Malk suggested. "Something fundamental." Dorr's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep concern. "Expand the experiment. Bring more human subjects. Different species from our collection. We need to understand this ability before we decide what to do about Earth." In his simulated apartment, unaware of the alarm he was causing, Tom scratched Scout behind the ears while Spike observed the interaction. From its perch on a nearby shelf, its alien eyes reflecting a very un-vrek-like curiosity. The Vrek High Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Dorr concluded his presentation. 12 of the most powerful beings in the Orion Arm sat motionless, their compound eyes fixed on the final holographic image. Tom Miller, asleep on a couch, Scout curled against his side, and most disturbingly, the juvenile vrek, Spike, nestled comfortably nearby. "This is troubling," High Counselor Zith finally said, breaking the silence. "You mean to tell us these primitives can form pacifying bonds not just with Galax, but with any species?" "Not precisely," Dorr clarified, mandibles clicking nervously. "But our experiments with 50 human subjects show a consistent pattern. They possess an extraordinary capacity for interspecies communication and bonding. They intuitively understand how to modify their behaviors to establish trust with non-human intelligences." Officer Malk stepped forward, adding, "We've introduced humans to 17 different sentient species from our biological catalog. In every case, they have established some form of mutual relationship within weeks." "How is this possible?" demanded Counselor Eriks, the military strategist of the group. Dr. Krell activated a new hologram showing human brain scans. Their neurological architecture is unique. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a planet filled with dangerous megafauna. They survived not through superior strength or speed, but through cooperation and communication. Their brains developed specialized systems for understanding the intentions and emotions of others, even non-humans. They're empaths? Zith asked incredulously. Not in the traditional sense, Krell explained. But they instinctively humanize everything they encounter. They assign personalities and intentions to weather patterns, inanimate objects, and especially to other living beings. This trait, which might seem like primitive superstition, gives them an uncanny ability to connect with other species. Counselor Naz, the oldest member of the High Council, rapped her claws against the table. I see the scientific curiosity. But what is the threat? These humans remain primitive. Dor's voice dropped an octave. The threat, Counselor, is what happens when humans stop being isolated. If they join the galactic community with this ability, intact, they will form alliances unlike anything we've seen. Every species they encounter becomes a potential ally. Absurd, Eriks clicked dismissively. The Morgax, for instance, have never allied with anyone. They barely tolerate each other. Malk's antennae twitched. We introduced human subject Lily to a Morgax berserker 3 weeks ago. By the end of the second week, the Morgax was allowing her to touch its primary sensory tendrils, something no non-Morgax has ever done without losing a limb. Stunned silence fell across the chamber. If they can do this with the galaxy's most dangerous species, Dor continued, imagine what would happen if humans reached out to the Vrek's traditional rivals or the unaligned worlds. The balance of power that has maintained the Dominion's position would collapse. High Counselor Zith leaned forward. What do you propose, Admiral? We have 3 options: containment, elimination, or controlled integration. Meanwhile, aboard the research vessel, Tom had made a discovery of his own. While playing with Scout and Spike, he noticed a pattern in the ship's security systems. The doors responded to specific Vrek biorhythms, but there was a slight delay when multiple life forms were detected. I think we can get out of here, buddy, Tom whispered to Scout, scratching the dog's ears. He glanced at Spike, who was observing them with those unsettlingly intelligent eyes. And I guess you're coming too, huh? Spike skittered closer, its movements now less alien, more reminiscent of an eager puppy. Tom had noticed that the juvenile Vrek had begun mimicking Scout's body language, a fascinating development that would have thrilled the scientists if they'd recognized its significance. What the Vrek failed to understand was that this wasn't just about humans domesticating other species. It was about humanity's unique tendency to form mutual relationships that changed both parties. Tom hadn't just trained Spike. He'd learned from the alien too, and that exchange, that two-way street of adaptation, was what made humans truly dangerous in a galactic context. As the High Council debated humanity's fate, Tom was planning his escape, with both his old friend and his new companion by his side. Alarms blared throughout the Vrek research vessel. Red emergency lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns, casting eerie shadows down the curved corridors as Tom ran, Scout loping beside him and Spike skittering along the wall in an unsettling display of arachnid agility. Containment breach in Section 7. The announcement echoed in both Vrek clicks and translated human language. All security personnel converge. This way, Tom whispered, ducking into a maintenance shaft he'd memorized from observing the routine movements of the ship's engineers. 3 months of captivity had given him ample time to study the Vrek, their technology, and their painfully predictable security protocols. What Tom couldn't have known was that his escape wasn't just his own initiative. Aboard the vessel, 12 other human captives had simultaneously broken free of their habitats, each accompanied by their Earth pets and, more surprisingly, by whatever alien species they had been paired with during the Vrek experiments. In the command center, Officer Malk stared at the security feeds in disbelief. This is coordinated, she clicked frantically to Admiral Dor. But how? They've had no contact with each other. Dor's compound eyes narrowed. Not through any technology. We can detect, at least. He turned to Dr. Krell. Explanation? The scientist's mandibles twitched nervously. Convergent problem-solving, perhaps? These humans have been subjected to similar conditions, observed similar patterns in our operations. They're heading for the shuttle bay. Malk interrupted. All of them. Tom pressed his back against a wall as a squad of wreck security drones skittered past. Scout, sensing the tension, remained perfectly still beside him. Most surprising was Spike, who had positioned itself protectively between Tom and the direction the drones had come from. "Good boy," Tom whispered automatically, then paused, realizing he'd just praised an alien the same way he would Scout. Somehow that felt right. As they continued toward the shuttle bay, Tom encountered another escapee, a woman named Kate with her tabby cat and what appeared to be a floating jellyfish-like creature that pulsed with bioluminescent light. "Tom Miller?" Kate asked, recognition flashing in her eyes, though they'd never met. "Montana, right? Golden Retriever? How did you—" "They kept files on all of us. I accessed a terminal during feeding time." Kate glanced at Spike. "I see you. Made a friend too." "Something like that," Tom replied. "You know how to fly one of their shuttles?" Kate grinned. "Commercial pilot before all this. Their navigation systems are actually pretty intuitive. The real question is where we go after we escape. Earth is probably being watched." "I know where," came another voice. A man emerged from an adjacent corridor, accompanied by a German shepherd and a small reptilian creature with prismatic scales. "I'm Jack, former Navy. I've been memorizing star charts from their databases. There's a trading outpost 2 systems over. Neutral territory. The Vrek won't follow us there without causing a diplomatic incident." In the High Council chamber, the emergency signal interrupted their deliberations. Admiral Dorr received the transmission, his posture stiffening with each click and whistle from the communication. "The human subjects have escaped containment," he informed the council. "They've commandeered 3 shuttles and—" He paused, mandibles clicking in what might have been the Vrek equivalent of disbelief. "They've taken 13 different species from our research catalog with them. Voluntarily." "Impossible," sputtered Counselor Eriks. "The Thrix alone would never—" "The Thrix alpha female is currently helping the humans bypass our security systems," Dorr interrupted. "And the Morgax berserker physically attacked our security forces to protect its human handler." High Counselor Zith's voice cut through the ensuing chaos. "You see now why Admiral Dorr brought this matter to our attention. These humans don't just domesticate, they inspire loyalty across species boundaries. If they reach neutral space and make contact with the galactic community at large." In the shuttle bay, Tom, Kate, Jack, and 9 other humans had indeed secured 3 Vrek shuttles. The bay doors began to close, automatic lockdown protocols engaging. "Now or never," Jack shouted. The shuttles lifted off, sleek and insectoid in design. Tom found himself at the controls of one, with Kate guiding him through the basics. Scout sat anxiously in a makeshift harness, while Spike had taken position by the navigation. Array, its alien appendages somehow helping interface with the Vrek technology. "They're not just pets," Kate observed, watching the various alien species working alongside their human companions. "They're partners." As the shuttles burst from the bay seconds before the doors sealed, Tom realized she was right. In just months of captivity, humans had done what came naturally to them for millennia. They had reached across the species barrier and formed bonds based on mutual benefit and genuine affection. And in doing so, they had unknowingly demonstrated exactly why the Vrek High Council now considered them the greatest potential threat to the established order of the galaxy. The trading outpost Nexus 9 orbited a dull red dwarf star on the fringes of Vrek-controlled space. Its sprawling, haphazard construction reflected the diverse species that called it home, temporary or otherwise. Docking ports designed for a dozen different physiologies extended like mismatched limbs from a central hub where commerce had thrived for centuries, away from the direct oversight of the major powers. Tom stepped off the shuttle, Scout at his heel, and Spike skittering close behind. The artificial gravity felt slightly off, and the atmosphere carried traces of unfamiliar compounds that made his nose itch. But compared to the sterile confinement of the Vrek research vessel, this chaotic trading post felt gloriously free. "We should split up," Jack suggested as the other humans disembarked with their unlikely companions. 12 humans together will attract attention." "Too late for that," Kate replied, nodding toward the growing crowd of aliens that had stopped their business to stare at the new arrivals. A hulking reptilian being with iridescent scales stepped forward, its translator rendering its rumbling speech into comprehensible English. "Humans," it stated matter-of-factly. "From Earth, with companions." Its slitted eyes lingered on Spike and the other research specimens that had escaped with them. "Interesting combinations." "We mean no harm," Tom said, stepping forward as the informal spokesperson for their group. "We escaped from Vrek captivity and seek asylum." The reptilian being, who introduced itself as Mox, a merchant captain, made a sound that might have been laughter. "The Vrek took you for study. That explains much." He gestured broadly around the trading post. "Many here would pay handsomely to hear of your escape." Over the next few days, word spread quickly through Nexus 9 about the humans and their unusual ability to form bonds with diverse species. Representatives from various unaligned worlds and minor powers requested meetings, each curious about this previously unknown species that the mighty Vrek had deemed worthy of extensive study. In a secluded chamber, Tom found himself addressing delegates from 7 different civilizations, each regarding him with expressions ranging from skepticism to fascination. "We didn't know about alien life until the Vrek abducted us," Tom explained. "We're still trying to understand our place in this galactic community." A delegate from the Axlon Confederacy, a gelatinous being contained within a mechanized support system, surged forward. "Yet you have already demonstrated a quality that has profound implications. Your ability to form cooperative relationships across species barriers is unprecedented." "It's just how we are," Kate interjected. "On Earth, we've lived alongside other species for our entire history. We domesticated wolves into dogs, wildcats into companions, horses into partners. We learn their ways, they learn ours." "The Vrek fear this ability," stated a crystalline entity representing the Silicon Collective. "They maintain power through division. Species that cannot communicate effectively cannot unite against Vrek dominance." Jack leaned forward. "Are you suggesting an alliance?" "More than that," Mox rumbled. "We're suggesting revolution." Meanwhile, aboard the Vrek flagship, Admiral Dorr faced the High Council's holographic projections with growing dread. "The humans have reached Nexus 9, he reported. "Our intelligence suggests they are already in talks with representatives from the Axlon, the Silicon Collective, and 5 other unaligned powers." High Counselor Zith's image flickered with interference, or perhaps agitation. "This confirms our worst fears. Those humans must be contained before they can broker any formal alliances." "There's more," Dorr continued reluctantly. "The research specimens that escaped with them, 13 different species, are acting as intermediaries. Species that have traditionally been hostile toward each other are now communicating through human facilitation." "Impossible," Counselor Eriks clicked. "The Morgax and the Thrix have been enemies for millennia." "Nevertheless," Dorr responded, "we have confirmation that representatives from both species are currently in the same room, with humans mediating their discussion." Back on Nexus 9, Tom watched in amazement as history unfolded before him. The trading post had become the unlikely birthplace of the first truly intergalactic coalition, not dominated by a single powerful species. "It's not just about fighting the Vrek," Tom explained to the assembled delegates. "It's about creating something better. A community where different species work together, each contributing their unique strengths." Scout lay at his feet, the embodiment of humanity's ancient partnership with another species. Spike had taken to perching on Tom's shoulder, its alien form now a familiar comfort rather than a source of fear. "Look at them," Tom continued, gesturing to the various Earth pets and research specimens that had escaped with the humans. "In just months, we formed bonds that the Vrek thought impossible. Imagine what we could accomplish given years, decades, centuries of cooperation." As the delegates debated and discussed, Tom realized that humanity's greatest strength, the very quality that had made the Vrek fear them, wasn't about dominance or subjugation. It was about connection, about seeing the potential for friendship in the alien, about extending trust across the boundaries of species and finding common ground. The Vrek had captured humans to study how they tamed the galaxy's most dangerous predators. They never expected that humans would turn around and befriend the galaxy itself. 6 months after the escape from the research vessel, Nexus 9 had transformed from a minor trading outpost to the headquarters of what was now officially Called the Galactic Cooperative. 23 formerly unaligned or minor powers had joined, creating the first serious challenge to Vrek dominance in millennia. Tom stood before a holographic display showing the position of Vrek forces throughout the Orion Arm. Scout dozed. Nearby, now accustomed to the strange scents and sounds of the space station, Spike, who had matured significantly in the past months, manipulated the holographic controls with surprising dexterity, its intelligence now fully awakened. They're consolidating their fleet at these junction points, Tom observed, pointing to clusters of red indicators. Classic containment strategy. Kate entered the command center, accompanied by her cat and the jellyfish-like Luminar that had bonded with her. The Axlon long-range sensors detected 3 more battle groups moving toward their borders. The Vrek are testing our resolve. Or our coordination, Jack added, joining them with his German Shepherd and his reptilian companion, now identified as a juvenile Sauran. They're hitting multiple Alliance members simultaneously to see if we'll actually defend each other. What the Vrek hadn't anticipated was how quickly humans would adapt to galactic politics. In less than a standard galactic year, the escaped humans had not only established contact with Earth, discreetly, to avoid causing panic, but had also begun implementing what they called Operation Noah's Ark. Small teams of human volunteers, accompanied by experienced spacefaring allies, made covert visits to Earth to recruit specialists and, crucially, to bring more animal companions into space. Dogs, cats, horses, falcons, elephants, dolphins. Earth's domesticated species became the foundation for unprecedented diplomatic breakthroughs. Admiral Dorr, now commanding the Vrek's largest fleet since the Mergoid Wars, received the intelligence reports with growing alarm. They've brought more Galax variants from Earth, he informed the High Council. But that's not all. They've introduced 27 additional Earth species to their Alliance members. The Saurans are now using Earth raptors for hunting. The Axlon have bonded with Earth cetaceans, finding unexpected similarities in communication patterns. Hi. Counselor Zith's mandibles clicked rapidly. This integration is happening too quickly. The natural barriers between species are being torn down. There's more, Officer Malk interjected. Our deep cover operatives report that humans are teaching other species their domestication techniques. The Axlon have already begun selective breeding programs with Luminar specimens, following human guidance. This threatens the fundamental order of the galaxy, Counselor Erix declared. We must strike now, before this coalition solidifies further. The Vrek fleet launched its coordinated attack on 7 Alliance worlds simultaneously. By all conventional tactical assessments, it should have been a decisive show of force. The kind that had kept the Vrek Dominion unchallenged for 12,000 cycles. What they encountered instead defied military logic. On the aquatic world of Axlon Prime, Vrek landing forces found themselves harassed by swarms of Earth dolphins working in perfect coordination with Axlon defense units. The dolphins' natural sonar had been augmented with Axlon technology, creating an underwater detection network that made stealth approaches impossible. In the silicon deserts of Crystallis, Vrek ground forces faced Earth-bred falcons and hawks that had bonded with the crystalline inhabitants. The birds served as mobile scouts, their keen vision allowing the normally slow-moving Silicon Collective to anticipate Vrek movements and set devastating ambushes. Most shocking was the defense of Nexus 9 itself. As the Vrek flagship approached the station, Admiral Dorr expected a conventional space battle. Energy weapons, shield technologies, perhaps some exotic weapons developed by the Alliance. Instead, they faced something unprecedented. Small, agile fighter craft piloted by human-alien pairs. Each craft operated with a synergy that Vrek tacticians couldn't understand. Humans handled intuitive decisions and adaptive strategies, while their alien co-pilots, many of them species that had escaped from the original research vessel, managed technical systems with inhuman precision. They're inside our response. Curve! Dorr clicked frantically, as another Vrek cruiser reported critical damage. The humans are anticipating our standard protocols, and the aliens are exploiting the technical vulnerabilities they're already familiar with. On the command deck of the lead human Alliance vessel, Tom coordinated the defense alongside Mox, who had become a key military leader in the coalition. The Vrek always follow the same patterns, Tom explained to the reptilian captain. Their entire civilization is built on predictability and control. That's their weakness. Mox rumbled his agreement. And our strength is adaptation. No two coalition ships fight the same way. As the battle for Nexus 9 reached its climax, Admiral Dorr faced an impossible choice. Commit his reserves to a costly victory, or retreat and acknowledge the legitimacy of this unprecedented alliance. In the end, it wasn't military calculus, but a completely unexpected factor that decided the outcome. Across the wreck fleet, junior officers, many of whom had been influenced by reports of the human-led coalition, began questioning orders. The rigid hierarchy that had served the wreck for millennia suddenly revealed its brittleness. "Admiral," Officer Malk reported, her voice carrying an unprecedented note of challenge. "Perhaps we should consider diplomatic options." The revolution had already begun. 5 years after the Battle of Nexus 9, representatives from 117 sentient species gathered in the newly constructed Harmony Dome on Earth's moon. The structure's transparent ceiling offered a breathtaking view of the blue-green planet that had unknowingly harbored the seeds of galactic transformation. Tom, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Cooperative, stood at the central podium with Scout, gray-muzzled but still dignified, at his side. Spike, now fully mature and recognized as a brilliant diplomatic strategist, waited nearby, with other representatives of the Vrek reform government. When the first Vrek ships appeared in Earth's skies, Tom began, addressing the assembled delegates, they came seeking to understand how humans had domesticated what they called Galax, predators, feared throughout the galaxy. They worried that this ability made us dangerous. Murmurs rippled through the assembly, translated through advanced systems that allowed real-time communication across species boundaries. They were right, Tom continued with a slight smile. But not in the way they feared. Humanity's danger was never about conquest or domination. Our revolutionary impact came from something much simpler: our capacity to connect, to form bonds across the boundaries that had kept galactic civilization fragmented for millennia. The diplomatic chamber of the former Vrek High Council, now the headquarters of the transitional government, was unrecognizable. Where once 12 Vrek had determined the fate of thousands of worlds, now a diverse assembly of species collaborated. Most striking was the presence of juvenile Vrek, raised and educated under the new system, already showing behavioral and even physiological differences from their ancestors. Officer Malk, now Chancellor Malk of the Reform Government, addressed the assembly. The latest educational exchange program has exceeded all projections. 10,000 Vrek juveniles have now experienced direct socialization with other species during their formative stage. And the neurological adaptations? Asked a human scientist, part of the extensive research team studying the long-term implications of cross-species bonding. Unprecedented, clicked an elderly Dr. Krell, who had become an unlikely advocate for reform after studying human-animal relationships in depth. The pathways associated with empathic response are developing in ways we never thought possible in Vrek neurology. Back on the Lunar Conference, Kate, now heading Earth's Interspecies Communications Institute, presented the latest findings. What began with humans domesticating wolves 20,000 years ago has evolved into something none of us could have imagined, she explained, as holographic displays showed the proliferation of cross-species partnerships throughout the coalition. We're seeing accelerated co-evolution as species live and work together, sharing environments and challenges. The most remarkable development had occurred on worlds where humans had introduced Earth animals as partners for indigenous species. Within just a few generations, both the Earth animals and their alien counterparts were showing adaptations that bridged the biological gap between them. Dogs working with saurians developed tougher scales along their backs. Falcons partnered with the Silicon Collective began growing crystalline deposits in their feathers that enhanced their sensory capabilities. Evolution itself was accelerating, under the influence of intentional cross-species cooperation. Admiral Dorr, now a historical consultant rather than a military leader, watched the proceedings from his retirement compound. Unlike many of his contemporaries, he had recognized the inevitability of change and helped negotiate the peaceful transition of power. We misunderstood from the beginning, he explained to the documentary team recording his perspectives. We saw humans as dangerous because they could control dangerous species. But their true power was never control. It was connection. On 1,000 worlds throughout the former Vrek Dominion, the pattern repeated itself. Species that had been separated by biological, technological, and cultural barriers for eons were finding common ground. often with humans and Earth animals serving as the bridge between them. As the lunar conference concluded, Tom returned to his quarters, where Scout dozed peacefully beside a bed, specially designed for Spike's arachnid form. On the walls hung photographs documenting the journey from captivity to revolution, human and non-human allies standing together at key moments in the formation of the cooperative. We didn't set out to change the galaxy, Tom reflected, scratching Scout behind the ears just as he had done that day in Montana when the Vrek first observed him. We just couldn't help making friends wherever we went. The Vrek had captured humans to understand how they turned predators into pets. What they discovered instead was how humanity's instinct for connection could transform a divided galaxy into a community. From pets to power. Not the power of dominance, but the far greater power of partnership. In the star-filled sky above the lunar dome, ships of 100 different designs moved in harmonious traffic patterns, carrying the representatives of a galactic civilization that had discovered a fundamental truth. The strongest force in the universe wasn't conquest or control, but connection. And all because humans couldn't resist making friends with the monsters.